I don't like the little 30-second countdown thing, but I've always been curious about how it would look, and I don't like it, so I'm not going to do that again. Um, so this is our second week of this Subversive Spirituality kind of limited run live stream, which we'll be doing. Started on Halloween, and we'll continue to right up until the Friday before Christmas. So last week we talked about subversion as kind of the theme. And Mondays I share a mystical experience. Wednesdays I reflect on the theme word. And then Friday we kind of look at a figure or throughout history that kind of embodies or calls us to kind of that theme. So this week I'm going to be sharing a sort of deconstructive mystical experience. That's today. Wednesday, we'll talk about deconstruction. And then on Friday, I'll talk about one of my favorite philosophers and mystics, Simone Weil. But to dive into my story, there's a lot of background to this one. So when last week I shared about this formative mystical experience of suffering and encountering the presence of Christ, kind of saying that I'm kind of connected to the sufferings of the world in some kind of way. And that kind of ignited my spirituality. And, in retrospect, the more time that passes, the more I realize that experience wasn't some sort of quintessentially Christian sort of experience. It was a little different than that. But since I was in the Christian context and the camp counselor who saw me weeping because of that experience thought I was being convicted of sin, and so led me through the kind of the sinner's prayer. And so that kicked me off into being really, really Christian in a really gross fundamentalist way, if I'm honest, because that's, what they told me to do. It never was a perfect fit. I had all kinds of different experiences, and I was an avid reader as a kid, a lonely reader. So I knew how to read scripture in a way that was more sophisticated than the people in leadership of my church. Because if you hadn't been kind of like conditioned to see scripture in that sort of way, some sort of weird wooden way, and you just had already read the Silmarillion when you're like a 14-year-old kid, and then someone hands you the Bible and says, read this, you're going to be a little bit more nuanced. So they condition and train that nuance out of you. So I went all into being the best sort of charismatic fundamentalist Christian I could be. But it didn't work the way I expected it to. I mean, I didn't feel this sort of transformation in power in my life because I had a lot of difficult things in life, and the church that I was a part of didn't live up to the words that it used. That's usually the case. Religion tends to be aspirational. And when you're aspirational, you tend to minimize the ways you don't live up to what you're going for and talk up things as though they're already there. And you're prone to spiritual bypassing, of minimizing the struggles and pain that people are experiencing in order to keep up the PR. So churches using language like family, we care for each other, piece of like all this sort of language can be a way of covering over pain rather than creating space to attend to it. In my teen years, I was always painfully anxious, and I didn't know it at the time, but dysphoric. It's not that I became a trans person at 46. I've been trans my whole life, and it was covered over, and so I felt a lot of dissonance and pain, a pervasive sense of wrongness. And I kind of wanted spirituality to address that wrongness, even though I didn't really know how to say that at the time. So when, at the age of 15, my mom who had emphysema, her lungs collapsed, and I had pneumonia. My twin brother and I both had pneumonia. And so I missed like a month or two of school because I was sick. My mom was taken to the hospital, and I didn't see her for a while, and I had to move. So I missed school, had to move to a new school, and just really went from being a straight A student to failing a couple of classes. My mom was sick. And then when she was brought out of the hospital, I started taking care of her because at the age of 16 and 17, my brother moved out of the house, my twin brother, and I was kind of left caring for my dying mother in my teen years. The church that I was attending um, went through a church split, and I had people telling me, um, that I was supposed to kind of like be ready to start pastoring this church as a teenager. That was my vocation and calling. So things were starting to be disruptive and unravel in all kinds of ways. At the age of 19, I graduated from high school. I didn't go to the Christ for the Nations, or something like that. That sort of charismatic 2-year school that I was supposed to, so that I could come back and start ministering at this rural church, charismatic church, because I was taking care of my mom. And then at the age of 19, while I was taking care of her, I also needed a side job just to pay the bills because we were on a fixed income. So I got a job sweeping a freezer, cold storage facility that held only McDonald's French fries. The church is going through a split. I was being told by people in that church that I missed God's will for my life because I didn't go to this crappy school, fundamentalist charismatic school. And my mom was she had a lung transplant, but she was in pain a lot. And I felt like, what the fuck is my life? This isn't what I signed up for. God felt distant. I felt abandoned. So one day after working in this shit job, I drove home in my Datsun 200 SX that didn't have brakes. Went home, and then decided I was going to forsake Christ because I felt abandoned and I wanted to return the favor. So I went in my room, walked past my mom. She said, "Hey," and then she used to tell me when I'd be gone that it was a good thing she didn't die while I was gone. It's really just fucking mind trip. So go to my room, strip naked, lay on my beige carpeting. It's this ugly, shitty room, and just look up at the ceiling and start trying to blaspheme and forsake Christ. Figure out how I could sever this tie. For a few hours, I sat, like, blasphemed, forsook, did everything I could just to, like, say, "Fuck you, Lord Christ, bastard!" Like, just all this sort of going into this, so overwrought. Like, I couldn't even cry. I was just so depleted. And then I just kind of sat there. I just did everything I could, and nothing had happened. And then that presence, the one I experienced when I was 14, came to me. And I could feel that presence say, "Yes, sucks. Go ahead and forsake everything, give it all up. Church, theology, whatever, all of it. But I'm still here, and I'm not going to forsake you." And I felt commiseration. And then that presence went away. And it didn't feel like, oh, I felt great now, but it was like something had shifted. Since then, I'd like to say my beliefs weren't shitty and oppressive anymore and everything was good, but it wasn't. It took a while. But that moment, I found this freedom to never have to conform to what I was supposed to do exactly, that there was a freedom in it to, like, continue to go deeper. And so I don't really, I'll share this more on Wednesday. I don't really ever think of myself as having just deconstructed anything. To me, the experience has been going deeper and deeper and being more faithful and attending to the core of my faith. But to the outside, to most people, people think I've deconstructed a lot. So we're going to talk about that this week. What is deconstruction? what is it, what isn't it, and how do we think about faith in a way that isn't attending and conforming and living up to something, but instead going deeper. So we've got some Arnett says, well, at least I got to see the countdown ones once. Yep. We're not going to keep it, but maybe we'll bring it back. It's such an exciting feature. I'm going to bring Kaylee on, and then we're going to talk a little bit about deconstruction, a little bit more from a personal perspective. And then Wednesday, we'll get into it a little bit more thinking about it perspective. Hey.
Hey. You're probably going to hear my dog whimpering in the background. We just got a new kitten, but we're not quite ready to have our husky around our kitten yet. And so I have a dog behind the door right here, and then my kittens are right there.
What's the kitten's name?
Named him Blaze.
Blaze. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe Blaze will make an appearance one of these times.
And our older cat is like being protective and hissing at the dog on the other side of the door.
We have one cat, Frey Guevara is his name, and he used to be Frey Guevara, the third Marquis of Kiberton, but then since he's become an accomplished mouser, he's been renamed Frey Guevara Mousebane, first of his name. So Frey lives inside the house, and I'm outside in the sheddy. So maybe one day I'll bring Frey into the shed to hang out and be on one of these broadcasts. So yeah, deconstruction. I don't know if you're listening to my story or not, if you have any reflections on that, or if you want to dive into what deconstruction has meant for you personally.
Yeah, I did hear your story. And I think the more that we talk about like mystical experiences, I think we're going to find that like I don't necessarily feel that I have mystical experiences, which is not to say that I find that like unbelievable. It's just more like I really do think that if there was a divine that whatever that is kind of like understands people and like works with them in their own way. But really that idea of digging deeper is really all I would say my deconstruction has been. It's not that I like kept like I tore down my beliefs or anything. It's like I studied the Bible. Like you know, I was in seminary, a conservative seminary. I had a conservative Bible college upbringing or education where I have a bachelor's in Christian ministry, and like just studying scripture is like what I like to do for fun. And we talk about this every once in a while because I'll be like, hey, here's a different translation to this verse.
People lose their minds.
But like that's all it for me. That feels like that's all it's been is like I'm just really digging in and like holding on to what I find to be there and letting go of things that I was told was true, but like not necessarily reflected in scripture. Which has led me to become this like crazy progressive that I am today, but that's besides the point. Like for me, it's that it is that digging deeper and just realizing that, oh, this like other peripheral stuff that I've been taught, like it's just like it's not there. And then just allowing myself to have freedom in ways that I think that scripture allows people to have freedom.
Yeah. I mean, really, to me, there's kind of this sense in which deconstruction, like people will often talk about deconstruction in terms of truth, like, and they have in your operative understanding of what truth is really matters. And not to get too philosophical here, but if truth is these concrete facts that exist outside of you, deconstruction becomes this thing of like throwing away ones that don't fit, and then giving yourself permission to start asking, well, what is true then? And that's valid. That's just not how I experience it. To me, deconstruction has felt more about a question of authority, which,
Mhm.
of course, there are philosophers that will link those two ideas, but I think in the West, we're kind of conditioned not to, for a reason of,
Mhm.
because power needs to be obscure. It's the way it shows up. But to me, it's like, who says, who has the say here? Like, to me, the reason that experience, I look back to that experience as being, oh my God, so cute.
He's so tiny.
Such a little small one. Yeah.
Mhm.
All the little mittens and booties.
Yeah.
That's fuck deconstruction. We're going to talk about this
We're gonna talk
beautiful
about kittens.
little kitten. Shit. Oh, so cute.
I think he just realized that he's on the screen. He's like staring straight at it.
Is he aware of himself, or is it more that he sees another cute kitten and he's enamored?
I have no idea.
I don't know what about object permanence or the sense of, all that kind of stuff with cats. I don't know.
He's only like 8 weeks old, so he's not old.
No, he's a little.
Okay.
Oh my God,
Okay.
so
You want to
cute.
go play? Ah!
Such a distracting little kitty. So the reason that
Just
experience derailed by cute kittens. Oh my God. So much I could say about cats and deconstruction there, because I used to not like cats. I used to hate cats because of how I was raised in rural Minnesota, and barn cats are, and somehow I linked being a dog person to my sense of masculinity somehow. And so after I came out, I'm like,
so
now I
I
love
did
cats.
too.
Now I love cats a lot. That's weird.
I did too. For whatever reason. For I just I mean I'm both. I love cats and dogs.
Yeah, I
We have
like
two cats and
dogs,
two
but it's
dogs
not.
now.
There's no
Um,
room in my heart for hating cats anymore.
yeah, but I also had that like idea of being a dog person is this masculine idea. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Interesting gendered
it is interesting.
experience in pets. It's a fascinating topic all on its own. This deconstruction experience, though, the reason why it's meaningful to me as I look back at it is it. This kernel got planted in me that, um, questioning the nature of authority.
Mhm.
So this idea that God exists outside of me, and that my primary relationship to this God is one of obedience, and that God kind of gives decrees that I have to discern through Scripture in some sort of absolute way by sifting through, um, sort of kind of universal ideas, like that kind of whole way of framing. I don't
Mhm.
agree with at all, but that experience is where it starts to unravel for me, because when you have Christ coming to you in an experience, saying it's okay to do that, to say no to all that, to question it because I'm here. Um,
Mhm.
that begins. There's a kernel or a seed there of ideas like, um, authority. There is now, instead of outside, is somehow inside of me, and that I
Mhm.
counter God primarily internally rather than externally. The idea that somehow, God's presence is a gift that isn't like is irrevocable, and that
Mhm.
I don't have to, obey in order to receive that gift. Like, these sorts of
Yeah.
ideas started getting in there, and like you were saying, like, I don't think people need to have mystical experiences. I think we relate to ourselves and other people in all kinds of ways. Um,
Yeah.
and to me, I would say mysticism. My theology or spirituality is mysticism happens to us. Like, God is present to us, whether we're aware of it or not, and different people are aware of it in different ways. And, if people have mystical experiences, great. That seems to be important for them, but it's not necessary for human flourishing, at all. So, but this idea of authority, like, who
Mhm.
says who says what's real and how do you perceive what's real, is
Yeah.
really kind of at the heart to me of what deconstruction kind of is about.
Yeah. And that's kind
Um,
of been something for me too, is this understanding of authority, especially when it comes to the divine. Um, because like there like there's always this appeal to some divine authority, and people will talk like they understand God and like compare understandings of God between different religions and stuff.
Hmm.
And I like I kind of realized, at least for myself, that's not a healthy way to understand the divine for me. Because the truth is, every individual person has their own understanding of what the divine is or is not. And and there's no single person that has the exact same beliefs. Even if somebody like goes to the same church, same family, all of this, like their experiences, their understandings, the way that they understand the same language that's being given to them, like
Hmm.
it's going to create a different understanding of the divine. And so it it's kind of like finding unity in the fact that we're all wrong. And like once we let go of looking for like that right understanding, and like arguing for who is right, like if we could like start at the understanding that we're all wrong already, it, there's a lot more room for like conversation and stuff. And like I think that's really hard to like let go of because we really like certainty. And so certain like feeling like we are right gives us certainty. But like we're not going to be like, if there is a divine and it's greater than humans, we're probably not going to understand it completely, especially if like if you believe that um everything that you need to know comes from one set of scriptures that was settled on like 1500 years ago. Like um you like your understanding is going to be different depending on like your own experiences compared to like historical figures, compared to the person sitting next to you.
Hmm.
So letting that go and letting go of like that, I guess that understanding of absolute authority that can be known, like fully known,
Yeah.
for me has been like one of the best like one of the best things for me to like move forward and uh, uh, like allow myself to accept my own spirituality and recognize the legitimacy of other people's spirituality that looks absolutely nothing like mine.
Hmm. Yeah. A few comments here. Arnett writes, it sounds to me as though you've just very effortlessly, and this is referring to my initial story. It sounds
Yeah.
to me as though you've just effortlessly delineated the difference between chaos and the void. I'd love it if you would reflect more on that, because I think I have some intuitions as to the difference between chaos and the void, but I'd love to hear you unwrap that a little bit more.
Yeah, I've done my area of expertise is actually in Old Testament, and um the difference between chaos and void in ancient understandings is actually really, I think it's really interesting.
Do you want to
Because
lay
they're
what's the difference?
so like basically a void is like the existence of meaningless, whereas chaos is the, oh, there's my other cat jumping on the computer. Uh, the
Well, I can do that if you have a year or so.
this is fun. But chaos is this understanding of unorganized existence, which is different than a void. And so like the creation narrative really focuses on function over like the over physical existence. It's about why do these different things exist? Because it's creating order out of the chaos.
Hmm.
Why are you guys fighting? Now my cats are fighting.
Is that chaos or void? Cats fighting is chaos.
It's chaos. Yeah.
Void is a room where there's no cats.
Yes.
I just, um, at least you don't have a 4.5-month-old puppy rambunctioning. That's great that you just turned that into a gerund verb. Around the world, how's well you're trying to do this? Yeah, I think four and a half year
Is that
old
four and a,
month old puppies are a little bit more rambunctious. Yeah.
is that 4.5 year old? I guess, oh, it is singular. Because I read that quickly and I was like, is that 4.5 month old puppies or? But no, it's a 4.5 month old puppy. So the dog that's actually on the other side of the door is about a year and a half, husky, and so
Oh,
she's still got a
I love
lot of
huskies.
energy. Yeah, she's amazing. I think
Yeah,
she wants to be a mama to the kitten, but we're still like, You could swallow him whole.
We we had a husky for a little while named Barkley, that we were kind of fostering when I was a kid. But I know they're different, but like my brain always links like huskies and Samoyeds and stuff, and all those fluffy, furry, whitish dogs are linked together in my mind. But it was sweet because it reminded me of Barkley. Reminded me a little bit of the first dog I had when I was born, and then up until the age of 4 when she died, Samantha, which is a very good name for a Samoyed. But Samoyeds are beautiful
yeah.
dogs. Someday, as an old woman, I want to have a Samoyed again. I've made that commitment in my heart just now. So yeah, feel free, everyone, whoever's watching this now, feel free to post your questions, and we'll add them to the show here. And we just got a few minutes left, and most people seem to listen and watch after the live recording period of time. So just so you know, if you do comment on any of these videos and want to have your comment like engaged in one of the, like, especially if we're talking about deconstruction, happy to bring in some of the comments and stuff into future episodes where we're talking about this. If you have a question, something you want addressed in one of the upcoming shows. Yeah. So to me, because another piece where people assume that I'm deconstructing is after coming out as trans. People interpret that as a deconstructive sort of thing, which again I don't really, but I could see how I'm deconstructing gender maybe, and patriarchy is filtered, like the filaments of patriarchy are all throughout Christianity and our understanding of spirituality, unfortunately, in the West. So yeah, you could say that, but it doesn't feel like it to me.
It's kind of like coming out and transitioning is like stepping forward, and just it's kind of like living what's already there, but because what's already there is not like understood or really universally accepted, it looks like deconstruction because it's challenging the like heteronormative understandings that people have tried to put on humanity for so long. But when, at least for me, when I'm in it, like I don't feel like I'm deconstructing gender. I feel like I'm stepping into just who I have always been. So it's not like I'm tearing something down, but just accepting what's there.
Yeah, and in a way, it feels more like excavating. It's digging through layers to get to the pulsing core of what's true, rather than tearing down a building and building something else, and then maybe building something in its place. Yeah, and so I feel like that's how I think about deconstruction in general. And it's how I'm going to approach things in the next couple episodes, especially why I want to talk about Simone Weil on Friday, because in a way you can't really say Simone Weil fits the category of deconstructing, because she starts as largely an atheist, and then end of her life becomes a kind of a Christocentric mystic, even though she never wanted to be baptized. So, but that was a movement towards Christianity, you could say. So why I think of her as deconstructive? Well, because her philosophy is fundamentally deconstructive, which we'll talk about more on Friday. Well, with that, yeah, and I'm assuming you're referring to my Samoyed comment, Arnett. Like, yes, having a Samoyed as an old woman is on my bucket list now, along with things like having a casual beer with Neil Gaiman. That's on my bucket list.
Okay.
There's a few other things. I want to do public speakings in Europe sometime. So if you're a European, I guess I've done that one, because I addressed that trans blessing group, the international trans group. But that's virtual. I want to go. I want someone to pay me to like fly over to do some talks.
Yeah,
like in the UK maybe or something.
So would you do it? Would you do it if they just covered like travel and boarding and food and stuff, and like you don't get paid to speak? Is that like the level of where you're at on this one?
Well, I would love to get paid but I mean, if it means going to
No,
Europe and everything is
you
covered and I
deserve
get
to
to
get
be
paid.
there, if they tack on a couple days where I can just
Yeah,
do whatever
hell
the hell I
no.
want, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
fuck yeah, I'd do that. But if anybody's watching and wants me to come over, I prefer to get paid.
Of course.
But you know, yeah. Well,
No, you deserve to get paid.
yeah. Speaking of paid, just to kind of do the commercial thing, this is fundraising season. I left somehow I left Arnett's comment up that whole time. I'm going to take it off. CPI, the Center for Prophetic Imagination, of which Kaylee and I are both kind of our gig. We're trying to raise $20,000 this fall. Actually, I think it might be 25,000. I'm not sure if that's the accurate number, but yeah, more than 20,000, and also get 25 new sustaining members, which you can find out more what that means by going to prophetikimagination.org. Yeah, help us out. Give if you can. And if you're like, well, what the hell do you do besides this, and post some snazzy memes sometimes on your social media? Well, you can find that on our website too. We do more than those things, even though
We
I think
actually
that those things are important.
We almost run a school, like in kind of a way. Yeah, like it's a certificate process, but it's
we're running
basically kind of a school.
Yeah, we run a program, a training program for spiritual direction that integrates with social transformation, retreats, some consulting stuff, doing the actual practice of spiritual direction, other things. And then, we have some initiatives for 2023 that you can also find on our website. And maybe we'll talk more about some of those initiatives, the things we want to do in 2023 in future episodes.
Yeah, we should probably do an episode on that one.
Yeah, I'll find it. We can weave it in somehow.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, have a good week, everyone. We'll see you again on Wednesday.
See you, everyone.